The Minnesota Timberwolves. Wow. This team is scary. And I know people are talking about Denver winning the whole thing again, that they're the favorites and Boston could challenge them and take it from Denver. But I think, in my opinion, Minnesota can win the whole thing. There is no doubt about it. What I saw against Phoenix was utter dominance. And the fans of Minnesota, you guys should be excited. I know there's been a lot of trial and tribulations. You had Kevin Garnett during his era. Then you had a rough patch. You brought in Anthony Edwards. Karl Anthony Towns had his question marks in the playoffs. But let's give some shout outs to Minnesota, because I want to spend some time on the Timberwolves and Anthony Edwards before we talk about Denver versus Minnesota, because this team is only going to get better. That's the scary part. So first off, shout out to Cat. I know in the past he's had his moments, but he played his role beautifully. Shout out to Anthony Edwards. He's the best shooting guard in the NBA. Hands down. I know people want to say Devin Booker. No, there is a gap now, and it's not even close. Shout out to Rudy Gobert. He had his struggles with Utah playing with Donovan Mitchell. People question, can he stay on the basketball court? Can he really make the impact during the playoffs? Well, the first round, man, he was amazing. This guy was controlling the paint, getting offensive rebounds, and he was dominant. When you're looking at the Minnesota Timberwolves and what they built this season, they built this team based on the defensive side of the ball. They had the number one defensive rating in all of the NBA, 16th in offensive rating. I think that's just going to get better with more experience on that side of the ball. And then when you look at their net rating, they were third in the NBA. And on top of that, they shot 38% from the three as a team. That was third in the NBA as well. So obviously, this team is only going to get better. And Minnesota fans, you should be excited because you have a superstar in Anthony Edwards. And let's look at Anthony Edwards' stats. It was just incredible what he did in that first round. His true shooting percentage, get this, was 64.8% in the playoffs. The first 4 games, he averaged 31 points, 8 rebounds, 6.3 assists per game, 2 steals a game. He shot 51% from the field and on 43% from 3. Actually, pretty much 44%. He is only going to get better, and he will be the face of the NBA. There is just no doubt about it. He is that guy. And I know there's been a lot of different conversations going on with the Suns this week, but let's give Minnesota a ton of credit because this team has been at the top of the conference the entire season. They showed their dominance in that first round of the playoffs. And when I looked at this matchup against Phoenix, even though Phoenix won all 3 games during the regular season, I thought it doesn't matter in the playoffs because if you have that good of a defense, it's going to translate in the playoffs very well. And Minnesota just shut them down. I thought it would go 7. Obviously, I was wrong. However, what you saw was a display of pure dominance. This team took the Suns' soul and never gave them a shot that they could come back in the series. It was amazing to watch. And then you have a guy like Karl Anthony Towns, who played his role very well. He is becoming a great second option for Anthony Edwards. He's letting Ant take control and be the leader, and he's playing very well right alongside him. Then you have a veteran presence with Mike Conley and an elite defender in Jaden McDaniels who can guard multiple positions. Minnesota is dangerous. And Denver cannot afford, in my opinion, to play from behind a lot this series. Because I think what could happen is if Minnesota gets their confidence, gets their mojo, and Denver is playing from behind, they are going to lose this series. I know they beat the Lakers in 5 games, but the Wolves are hungry. Anthony Edwards is out to prove to everybody that he is ready for this moment. Now, of course, I don't want to forget about Nikola Jokic. He will be the best player in this series because he's the best player right now in the NBA. Now, when I look at the matchup between Denver and Minnesota, the first thing I want to focus on is the matchup between Rudy Gobert and Nikola Jokic. The key to this matchup is, can Rudy Gobert slow him down in spurts? Because you're not going to just shut down Jokic. We saw Jokic body Anthony Davis, who's one of the best defenders in the NBA, down the stretch of game 2, and he just wasn't afraid to post him up and play bully ball. So Jokic has that in him. Also, who is going to guard Jamal Murray? Is it going to be Jaden McDaniels? Because you can put Jaden McDaniels on Jamal Murray, and bother him. Minnesota can throw a lot of different looks at Jamal Murray. You can throw J.D. McDaniels out there for 5 minutes. You can have Anthony Edwards in situations where he can guard Murray. You can throw Mike Conley for a period of time, but don't be predictable. Throw different looks and see what happens. Try to slow him down, contain him, or whatever you can do. If you can bother him, that's a big W for Minnesota. They're going to make it tough on him. They're not going to just go out there and let Murray go crazy. And it's not going to be easy, obviously, but I think Minnesota does have the personnel to make it a challenge for him. Another key matchup to watch out for is Aaron Gordon versus Karl-Anthony Towns. See, Cat has to watch out for the offensive rebounding opportunities from Aaron Gordon. Key plays in key situations. Gordon made a ton of them to keep Denver alive, where he got a rebound or he hustled for the ball, and it led to a key three-point shot against the Lakers. You're not going to out-talent Denver. You have to out-execute this team, because if you don't, you're not going to win this series. I know it's going to be hard. It's not going to be easy, but Minnesota has to be as flawless as possible when you're playing Denver. Denver, yes, they didn't lead for most of the series. They won in 5 games. You want to keep that in mind. So if Minnesota's up, you got to put your foot down. You got to continue to stomp them. You cannot let up, because once you do, Denver's going to take advantage of it. Another important factor is the bench. I think Minnesota has a better bench. Naz Reid, 6th man of the year. Nickeil Walker, he's going to be really solid during this series. So Minnesota can present some challenges here. And the biggest thing that I think is going to ultimately lead to whoever wins this series is the offense. We know Denver is an oiled machine. This offense is crisp. They play with purpose, and you're not going to shut them down. That's not realistic. But Minnesota has to match their offensive production, because if they don't, Denver is going to win this series easily. I don't think it's going to happen, because I think Minnesota is going to have moments where they shut them down defensively, but there's going to be other times where you have to score on the offensive side of the ball and be more clutch than Denver. Denver has a ton of confidence in late game situations, so Minnesota has to answer the call. When it comes to predictions, I'm going to go Denver in 7. I want to pick Minnesota, but I think it's just not their time yet. Do I think next year they can make the finals and win it all? I do. This team is legit. But at the same time, Jokic is still the best player in the NBA. Can Anthony Edwards take that from him as like the guy who's coming up next? Yes, he can, because this guy's fearless. He doesn't care, and he's out to the hoop, and he's out there to take your soul. Like, this guy is awesome to watch. But I think at the same time, Denver is just going to be better in late game situations. Their offense would be just a little bit better than Minnesota. And I think it's just going to be a tough, hard fought 7-game series. It's going to be fun to watch. I'm looking forward to it. Again, shout out to the Timberwolves. You guys have a great roster. You're going to be really good for years to come. Even if you lose this series, no need to be down about this team, because I think they're only going to get better. They've got a great defense. They have a great identity. It's just you're going against Denver, and that's hard to overcome. Hope you guys enjoyed this video today. Love to hear your thoughts on Anthony Edwards, the future of Minnesota. Can they beat Denver? What are your predictions? Also, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.